Hello and welcome to another video. I'm Robin Lee and today we are reviewing some audiobooks I read recently. Yeah, so all my audiobooks, well, most of my audiobooks, I get from scribd.com, which is like a digital library where you have access to basically all the books in their library. In South Africa, I don't have as much access to books as people in other countries do, but that's okay. I still get by, and they have some great. What am I talking about? Anyway, I read audiobooks. I listen to audiobooks on Scribd, and today I'm going to be reviewing three of them. Yes, so we're going to look at The Guest List by Lucy Foley, Lakewood by Megan Giddings, and The Shadow in the Glass by JJ A. Harwood. Yes, I think that's what the author's name is. Uh, I think let's start with Lucy's book, Lucy Foley's book, The Guest List. So, The Guest List is a mystery thriller by Lucy Foley, and it takes place on this island during a couple's wedding weekend, and all the guests are there. It's a very Wuthering Heights vibe. So it has that gloomy kind of spooky skeleton island vibe. And then there's a storm that happens over the weekend, someone dies, and obviously we're trying to figure out who done it. I love whodunits. I really, really like this book because what did I like about it? I liked everything about it. I like the characters. The narration is done, or the audiobook narration has like a whole cast. So every POV character is done by a different voice over actor person. And yeah, I there's one person who had like this Irish kind of accent that really, really just did it for me. And the fact that there were different point of views was also cool because you got to see the events of the day happen from different perspectives. So it's kind of like an eyewitness account of the days. And you also get to see like the different people's interpretations of events and what they think about the different like specific characters. And obviously they kind of weave through the story and tell you, oh, this one looks suspicious, that one looks suspicious. So you think about all those things and you get to know all kind of like the other players and some of the main suspects in the story. You get to know them a bit, which is great. Like I love books where you have different point of view characters. I think just hearing the entire internal dialogue of people who are not like just the bride in this case or the groom, and seeing the day. Like one of the characters is the wedding planner, and you get to see like when all the guests are having like a drunken party and they're going on like maniacs or whatever. Her perspective and the fact that she's like all just focused on the fact that she wants this to be a perfect day, and she wants to, like one of my favorite quotes is, life is messy, but one day can be curated. You can control 24 hours. Um, and that's in her POV. And it's one of my like favorite quotes in the entire book. Then there's the mystery element, I suppose, is I like the mystery. Like I said, it was a whodunit. There were clues throughout the story that kind of gave you an idea of who the bad guy was. Not the bad guy, but the person who died, who happened to be a bad guy. So this guy dies, and it's like everyone at the wedding is kind of somehow related to him. There are some of his friends from school, some of them are like a plus one. There's like the friend from school, there's a plus one, there's like this person's supposed to be his best friend, and then you have, the wedding planner as well. There's the bride, You get her point of view as well. And so there are all these people who are kind of connected to him, and people he's kind of done wrong in the past. I don't know if you've ever read uh, Murder on the Orient Express. It's kind of like that thing where all these people who were mistreated by the dead person, they're all kind of in the same space, and one of them killed him, and they all have very good reason to kill him. So just finding all of that out is was very enjoyable. Uh, yeah. So what else is there to say about that one? I can't think of anything right now, but I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. Um, yeah, there's a lot of one of the things that I really liked about it was the so all these boys went to like the same all the boys the dead guy and his friends, they all went to the same boarding school, right? And there were a lot of like dark academia stuff happening where they were just bullies to one another, like the kids would bully one another. um, and there were like all these cultish kind of chanting things that happened birth this thing. They did like dares and played like tricks on one another, and it was just completely horrible. Like these like the worst kind of like macho ness ever. Just like that toxicness, all of it, like all in this one school. Um, and kind of a boys will be boys vibe to it that happened. Anyway, so I really liked that throughout, like going back to the school. There's a lot of flashbacks to like things that happen at the school um, through the different, through some of the characters. You get to see like what it was like when there was a specific summer where they did something really horrible to this one kid, and yeah, you get to learn about it. So it's like there's this one mystery, but there are all these other mysteries within it. Like this is the core kind of murder mystery, and there are all these other tales that kind of swirl around it, and you get to read it all. I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm gonna leave it at that. That was the guest list. Next, the next one I read was The Shadow in the Glass by J.J.A. Harwood. This is a dark Cinderella retelling. Like, for me, it was like Cinderella meets Macbeth. Like, that's the kind of tragedy the story is. It tells a story about this girl. It's set in Victorian England, and she, like, her parents died, and then she was given to the guardianship of this, like, a wealthy couple, who they had a son. His name's Charles, and then somehow, like, her name's Eleanor. Yes, Eleanor was going to be raised up to be like a lady, and she was taught in all the graces and all that jazz of a high society. And then the women, kind of like the matriarch of the family, dies. And when that happened, then she got kind of chucked off to be like a servant. So all her hopes and dreams kind of fell. And the guy in the story, the patriarch in the story, he mistreats the servant girls who work in his household. And there are a lot of like allusions to well, like he gets them pregnant and then sends them away without a reference. And sometimes he even threatens Eleanor to send her away, like in the middle of the night, wearing her pajamas or whatever, and just sending her away because of reasons. Because of reasons, or because he doesn't like something that she said. Um, so there's that happening within her household, and there's these injustices happening. And Eleanor really, really wants a new life. She wants a new life for herself. At the beginning of a book, one of her friends, Leah, finds out that she's pregnant, and then she gets sent away without a reference, which is horrible for a woman who's pregnant out of like wedlock in the Victorian ages, because it's like, what do you do? So that's kind of like the worst thing that could happen. and she wants to find Leah, and then she wants to protect herself and protect one of her other friends within, who also live kind of in this household. And she kind of wants to do that, and she wants like a better world. She wants to travel the world. She reads often, so there's all the stuff that all these things that she sees in books that she kind of like to try for herself and see and travel the world. And so, kind of like not really a fairy godmother, but it's supposed to be a fairy godmother, but like the dark version of a fairy godmother presents herself to Eleanor and gives her 7 wishes. Yeah, the woman has like these dark black eyes, like her eyes are completely black. And she gives Eleanor these wishes in exchange for her soul. Eleanor's like, "Ah, okay, fine." She does it because she's like, she's desperate to get out of this situation that she's in and to help her friends and protect them against, um, kind of against their master or the person they're working for. So she trades her soul for these 7 wishes, and she figures, well, she doesn't have to make all the wishes. She can just make 6 wishes and then just keep the 1 wish, and then she'll never leave her soul. She'll trick the woman. But all magic comes with a price, which you should know. Newbies um, never realize that. But anyway, all magic comes with a price, and the prices in in this kind of story is life. Yeah, so magic, the cost of magic is life. And every time Eleanor uh, kind of makes a wish, she someone dies, right? And she doesn't get to pick who dies. The woman with the black eyes, she picks the person who dies, and she's very sneaky. Like, she reminded me a lot of Rumpelstiltskin in Once Upon a Time. She's always like lurking in the shadows, waiting for a moment when Eleanor is most desperate, and then she's just there. She doesn't really say anything. She doesn't say make a wish, but she's there. Like, Eleanor feels her presence. So yeah, it reminded me of Rumpelstiltskin in Once Upon a Time a lot, where he's always like, "Hi, I can make that go away. Just do this one thing, dearie," and all that jazz. So yeah, thing has deadly consequences. And at the beginning of it, when she realizes that, her wishes are gonna cost people's lives, she kind of doesn't want to do it anymore. And that's what makes the story so great. Like, she's actually a good person, and I kept thinking to myself, like, after I'd finished it, I kept thinking to myself that this book kind of, it suckered me in. It proved that I'm a sweet summer child, because, like, I know that it's a tragedy, but I still was hoping for a happy ending. I was hoping and rooting for Eleanor to like defeat this um, black-eyed woman and like retain her soul. But you know, that's not how these things worked. And even though she was trying to like not use her wishes, eventually she does, like, some accidentally. Like, the first one was just kind of like a test. She wanted some slippers, and so she wished for slippers, and then she got them, like glass slippers. And then there was like an accidental thing where she just blurted out, "I wish that you could stop doing the thing that you're doing, the horrible thing that you're doing." And that had consequences. And there was another time. There was like one time when I actually wanted to DNF this book because there was a character who was just really, really mean to, like, she was mean to Eleanor. She was mean to like a random orphan boy in the road, and she was just like really, really horrible. But luckily, that character she didn't die, but she didn't last much either. She didn't last very long. She lasted like a couple of chapters. So other than that, like, there were those instances where she tried to use her wishes for good because there was no avoiding using them. Like, yeah, there was no avoiding using them because she'd already traded her soul. There was no like take backsies on this deal, which is why you do not make deals with bad guys. You don't make deals with like dark magic and bad magic and stuff like that, because it always comes with a price, and there's always some sneaky thing that they twist in there so that. That's fine. My brother just said something silly. Um, but anyway, yeah, like you don't make deals like that. You don't make deals with dark magic people. You make them with fairy godmothers, I suppose. um, yes. So she ends up making these wishes, but every time she makes a wish, like a piece of her soul kind of goes away. She loses like a piece of her soul, and as the story goes on, it's kind of like the fall of Eleanor, and she turns into this character where you're like, who the heck are you? I don't know if I want to root for you anymore. Like, this book tricked me, but like in the best way. And I'm really glad that I read it. The cover is beautiful. I wish that there will be a sequel. I want there to be a sequel because I don't know. I think I'm going to do a spoilery review of this one just so that I can go into a bit more detail and gush a bit more. But I do hope that there's a sequel, and I want to tell you why I wish that. So I'll do a spoilery one at some point in time. Yeah, like the characters are awesome, her friends are awesome, her motivations are real, and you can see like the fall and the way she turns from being the sweet little innocent naive girl to just slow fade to just the downfall. Like if you think about Macbeth, like he starts as this noble person who doesn't care about whether he's going to be king or not, but by the end of it, he's so corrupt and he's so caught up with being king and holding on to his power that it leads to his downfall eventually. There is a romance in the story, a lovely romance with Charles and Eleanor because it's a Cinderella retelling. So, that's another point. Another reason why I love this is while I was reading it, I kind of forgot, and I watched someone else's review on this book where she said the same thing. Like while she was reading it, she kind of forgot that it was a retelling and that it was a Cinderella story. And I remember reading it. I didn't know that it was. I just knew that it was like a dark fairy tale, um, deliciously a dark fairy tale. And I remember getting towards the end of it and thinking, this reminds me of Cinderella. Then I was like, oh, it's a Cinderella retelling, which is nice because usually, like, if you think about a Cinderella story, there's so many Cinderella stories out there. It's always the same. Cinderella has some stepsisters, they're mean to her, and there's this prince, and there's a ball. There's a ball in this one too. So it's taking like the same elements of the Cinderella story, like the mother dying, and then like her place in society kind of she gets downgraded, and yeah, having some friends around her and some enemies in this new like little circle where she is that she lives in, and obviously like in this case it's stepfather, or her guardian. It's not even a stepfather, it's a guardian just being mean to her. And there's some really cool explorations in the book about like what is the soul, what does the soul do, where does the soul live in, like in your body, in your personhood and all that jazz, which is interesting, food for thought. um it doesn't really come to any conclusions, but I think if it's something that you're interested in as a person, then yeah, it's interesting. And that was Cinderella's retelling called The Shadow in the Glass. I love this book. I gave it 4 stars. The reason it's not a 5 star is because of that little thing, that little section of abuse or mistreatment of, the servant people. Um, so just reading that was gut wrenching, and I was like, I can't do this. So other than that little part, yeah, if it wasn't for that, I would have given it like 5 stars, and I hope there is a sequel. I do with all my heart. The last one is Lakewood. Now, Lakewood is what is Lakewood? It's a horror. Yes, it's a horror that is about like medical testing on minorities. So it follows a character. She's African American. When the story opens, the her grandmother died. Yes, her grandmother dies, and her mom is sick, so she kind of has to worry about taking care of her mom. She's in college, so she has to think about bills and taking care of her mom and health insurance and all that jazz. When she gets an invitation to be part of this like Lakewood project and pays a lot of money, and so she has to move to Lakewood under the guise of like there's this fake job that she's doing, so that when she has conversations with people, so that when she has conversations with people, like she can tell them, "This is what I did today," and they write up like cards every single day for them. And then there's like the actual thing that they're doing is they're part of this like research experiment, and there are different like sometimes they have to take pills and stuff. Sometimes they have to eat like specific type of things. They only have to eat like there are these little balls of something, these colorful balls, and they only have to eat that. And like there's lunch and dinner and whatever written on them, and they only have to eat that. And sometimes they get taken away places and shown. Like there's this one instance, she goes to a cabin in the woods. They show her a video of a man assaulting her, and then a man opens like when she has to leave the cabin to go back. Um, a man opens the door and she like attacks him and runs away from him when he's actually the person to transport her. So it's looking at like whether you'll help people in need. There are other places where like there's a cat and the cat says, I'm dying, please help me. And looking at like all these different tests to see how this person will react. And the weird thing about Lakewood is that the only the people who are part of the experiment, they're the only like African American and minority people um, there. And in the little group, I think there's like one white lady, Bethany. Then there's an Asian guy, a Hispanic person, like a Latinx person, um, and then the two African American people, like Charlie and can't remember the main character's name, Lena, I think. I never remember people's names in books. So Lena and Charlie are the only African Americans, and then there's the Asian guy and the Latino girl, the Latinx girl, um, and Bethany. And the weird thing about Bethany is that like there's this one experiment that happens, and then all Bethany's teeth fall out. Now, when I was reading that, I didn't realize it was supposed to be a horrific little event, but yeah, stuff like that happens. People's teeth fall out. There's a lot of puking and vomiting in the thing. People like yeah, just a bunch of stuff that happens. And then the next day, or like over the weekend, there's someone who looks just like Bethany, but she's not Bethany. Her name's Judy. And that Judy lasts like a day or two, and then there's a new Judy. And there's this poster that keeps that all these Judys, they're like the admin assistant or something like that in the company. Yeah, the Judys keep putting up this same poster of like a different dessert with the words um, stressed is dessert spelled backwards. But it's like sometimes it's a cupcake, sometimes it's like a slice of some other cake, sometimes it's some other dessert, but it's kind of different forms of the same thing. And the Judys always like talk to them as if like nothing's changed. It's very, very uncanny. Um, so there was that. And why did I like it? What did I like it? What did I like about it? I liked those elements. Obviously, there was the mystery of like what they're doing, who are these people, kind of the machine behind the machine, like uncovering all those things, like who's doing this, why are they doing it, is it the government, is it big pharma? um, None of those questions get answered, by the way, which is a little peeve that I have with the book. But anyway, and then there's these monitors or observers. People are observing them and taking notes and stuff, and all of them are white. So there's like the minorities who are being observed, and the observers who are all white. And in this little town, people are kind of, they're used to strange things happening, and apparently like experimentation's been happening in that town for years, and the townsfolk are just like they're just used to it, or they just don't notice it. And apparently, the townsfolk are very, very racist. There are a lot of discussions around race, discussions around human experimentation, um, which is really cool. The discussions are cool. Human experimentation is not cool. Just making that clear. Those discussions are really cool because I don't know. I don't think it's something that we think about a lot of times. Um, yeah, I think a lot of things we're oblivious to, and we're happily oblivious to it. So just stuff like that. And then there were certain things, like there was a lot more that the author could have done with the story. She could have taken it in a different direction. There was like this idea where it's one section where Lena's doctor talks about sometimes she feels like this is a box inside a box. So usually the observers are just by themselves observing them. There's this one day when her doctor is being observed by someone else. And that's just like, maybe it's a whole box inside of a box where it's like, what is really going on here? But the author doesn't explain that to us, and we don't know why. Uh, but all in all, it was a really, really cool book, a really good read. I enjoyed it, and I gave it 4 stars. So that's like what, 3 4 star reads? That's a good thing. That was a good September so far. Tell me what you've been reading lately. Have you read any of these books? If so, tell me what you thought about them. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you for hanging out with me. And yes, I'll catch you next time. Please subscribe and like this video if you enjoyed it. Bye.